Okay, that didn't really answer my questions at all. Still just as confused. Where did Homer go? You need to go to Homer's Shrine. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Could go southwest of Risa. Alright. Well, it's kind of unfortunate I have to be, like, alone for this part. I'm already there. Oops. It's like, how am I gonna make it? I have to, like, run away from everyone, maybe? It's the only way. I'm just getting destroyed. I have to actually take someone first. This guy really can't do anything by himself. Oh, he has MP. Never used it. Anyway.
Strategy game, but it was arguably one of the first to make it a big deal, in Japan anyway. This is probably due to its simplicity. There's no in-depth, brain-racking tactics needed to employ. You can be pretty gung-ho and still do alright. It's a more accessible game than some of the others around at the time. You don't have all of these intricate little pieces with their own skills and strengths. All you have to contend with are tanks, soldiers, anti-aircrafts, and so on. It's immediately obvious just by looking at the icons what the strengths and weaknesses will be. One thing you might notice straight away is that the grid here is not square. The tiles are square, sure, but the layers are offset, meaning you're actually playing on a hexagonal grid. This opens up many more movement options. It makes it so much easier to place yourself adjacent to an enemy you want to attack, as you're not punished for moving on the diagonal. Think how it's done in Civilization and you'll see what I mean. The options are plentiful. You can choose whether each team is controlled by a player or a CPU, meaning you can have a link cable-free two-player experience, go one-on-one with the AI, or even watch a battle play out without any control. The maps vary depending on if you play one or two player, but either way there are a lot to choose from. You can choose whether to supply your troops manually or automatically. Automatic is more accessible, but choosing manual allows more in-depth tactical play. Pressing A over your base allows you to build a unit, depending on your current resource level. Otherwise, click on a unit and move it within its range. You need to capture resources to earn money, which allow you to build the units, amongst other things. Typically, this will be the buildings you see. The grey ones are currently not aligned to a side and are ready to be captured. Capture as many buildings as you can before the enemy. Money is very important, so make sure you claim it. The game is reasonably forgiving. You can save at any time with the inbuilt battering. You'll need to as well, because these battles can drag something fierce at times. If the map is a large one, don't expect to be thrown straight into a gunfight. Both armies are going to have to slog their way to each other over many turns. Game Boy Wars isn't really my go-to when choosing a turn-based strategy game, and there are a few reasons. Sure, the Japanese is a little bit of a problem, although the most basic hiragana knowledge should be enough to at least tell you what the units are. It's an accessible game, but for anyone with moderate strategy, tell you what the problem. Although the most basic hero game, but for anyone should be needing it over many basic strings. Struggles at times as well. Having said all that, Game Boy Wars is actually pretty good, and it started a franchise that turned out to be a big deal, especially on portable consoles. I think the main reason for me is I prefer the separation that a fantasy world-based game gives you. I'd much rather command an army of goblins into battle than an army of actual people. Maybe I'm too sensitive, who knows. I'd much rather command an army of goblins into battle than an army of actual people. Maybe I'm too sensitive, who knows.
Man, I have to come here alone.
In name and characters only, this is a Japan-only sequel to the 1989 trap-em-up Boomer's Adventures in Asmic World. Boomer's back, but this time, his job is to reach an exit somewhere in each puzzle by assembling all of the designated road sections he's been given into a route that circumnavigates obstacles, all the while stopping the little children from being kidnapped. You can see in the bottom left corner of the screen what road pieces you have to use, and it's obligatory to use all of them, I'm afraid. No cutting straight for the most direct path. You'll really have to think about this. The exit you're aiming for might be a door or a cave entrance, but it may also simply be an arrow pointing off screen somewhere. If this is the case, you also have to approach the arrow from the correct angle. It's self-explanatory once you see it, but not an easy feat. It's not hard to mess up. You can frequently use too few pieces, or try to forge a path to a place that you don't have the right sections available for. The way the sections are laid down is pretty simple in that you don't have to choose the correct bit, rather just the place where you want to go. The game will put the right piece down automatically, so long as you have one. If you do make a mistake, press A and a directional button, retracing your steps to undo the route taken. It's not as simple as that though. Honestly, were that the entire concept, it would not make that interesting an affair. There are enemies all over the field, and they're hungry. The reason you're building these roads is so that your little ones can walk out of their caves to the end. Once they leave the sanctuary of their cave, they're vulnerable, however. If an enemy grabs your child, it'll eventually drag it off. If this happens, you lose a life. You're not completely helpless though. Press B, not A as it'll delete the route, and a direction to navigate to where the kidnapping is taking place. Run into the enemy to engage them in a battle. This takes you to a different screen, where the aim is to plant bombs in order to defeat the nasty child snatchers. There are other special items as well. If you succeed, the enemy will skulk away, leaving your bairn behind. Lose all your energy, however, and you'll be stunned for a few seconds, which will almost certainly result in them being taken captive. There are usually various solutions to each puzzle. Each stage can be split into different screens as well, with later levels being longer. In fact, the last level is something like 18 screens. The fourth in each world harbors a boss, but none of them are hard. It's always just a case of dodging their pre-scripted routes and planting enough bombs to blow them away. After each stage you get a password, and there are 4 worlds with 4 stages each. The passwords aren't just random letters, they spell out a little message once you mesh them all together. Boomer and his children must reach the sacred altar to fulfill their destiny for Asmic World. The controls take a little while to comprehend, which can, in moments of panic, lead to real frustration. For instance, when you're at one end of the screen and your kids get hassled, chirping away, it's easy at first to get totally muddled trying to get back to save them, but not moving anywhere. You need to first choose where to put a piece by using the D-pad to select the tile relative to you, then press A to place it. It's tough at first, but should hopefully become natural after not too long. Decent enough graphics and not unpleasant puzzle-gamey music accompanies what is a completely different experience to the first Boomer game on Game Boy, and while this is certainly more interesting than the trap-em-up experience from before, it's let down a little by the initial control confusion hump, and after a while the gameplay does start to feel a little stale. Slogging through 10 or more screens in one go can be a pain. Not bad for what it is though. Here come the Madcap Snow Brothers. Well, no, actually. Being as it is a Game Boy game, Tom has mysteriously vanished in King Scorch's Ice Palace. More chilling news, that's the manual's pun, not mine, the sun is burning out. Now it's up to Nick to rescue his brother and save the heart of the sun. Snow Bros. Jr. plays virtually the same as the NES version, with only a tiny handful of gameplay elements taken away. There are 50 floors to this palace, with a boss every 10 floors. You play as Nick the Snowman, whose goal on each floor is to wipe out all the enemies by encasing them in a snowball and then punting them before they break out. If it sounds an awful lot like Bubble Bobble, that's because it is. You jump with A and throw little snowballs with B. You fire an infinite barrage of snow clods at the enemy. Each one takes 4 or 5 to completely encase them. You can stall them with 1 or 2, which also makes them temporarily harmless, but to be able to kick them, you need to fully trap them. The cool feature about this comes when you kick the ball. They will fly from side to side across the level and drop down through holes, taking out other enemies along the way, before ultimately splattering on a wall. You gain a small points bonus for each wall it rebounds off. It's possible to clear whole stages out by doing this, which is incredibly gratifying, and each enemy you run down gives a little bonus sweet or potion, so it's worth trying to do. You can hit a trapped enemy from underneath to knock it up to a higher level, meaning you can potentially kick an enemy from the very top and hit all the others on a level. If you manage to clear out all the monsters in one shot, these dollar bills float down from the top, giving a ton of points. Another inventive little mechanic that comes along with this is Nick can hitch a ride with these fast-moving snowballs if he stands in the way of it. It doesn't hurt you, and you can jump out of the ball at any time using A, but it's a cool and occasionally useful way to move about the level. I briefly mentioned the potions that drop when you chain hit enemies. They're actually hot sauce. I'm not going to get into the judgment of a man with a largely frozen constitution to eat something that would exacerbate his melting. What these do is increase the size of your projectiles, meaning fewer are needed to encase the enemies. There's also one that speeds you up. Once, a bottle turned the character into a massive floating version of himself. I assume this allows you to deal instant damage, but seeing as how I've only seen it one time after I cleared the level out already, I can't be certain. The levels are mostly one screen, and there's no screen wrapping like in other games of this style, until the later levels. I adore the sprite animations. Rather than just jumping like all other platforming mascots, Nick does a kind of parkour front flip thing. It doesn't affect the movement in any way that you wouldn't expect, but it looks nice. If you partially trap an enemy but they then break out, they'll shake off the cold and snow with a stunned shiver. Again, it doesn't mean much, but it's a cute little touch. There are lots of different enemies, some of which fire at you, from birds to monkeys to these goblin-like creatures. They all have slightly different movements, but are all killed in the same way. The bosses are inventive, but the general principle is that you ball up the little critters that they spew out at you, and then pelt them back at the big guy. The controls are perfect, and the difficulty curve is exactly right. I like that the snow you throw kind of follows gravity a little. It'll go along horizontally for a bit, but then drop downwards. Pay attention to this because if you position yourself just right, you can actually trap enemies patrolling a lower level than you. Useful in a pinch. This game has become more sought after in the past few years. It's going for a pretty penny. Ever more so the more people realise how great it is. It's not nearly at the astronomically ridiculous height of the NES cartridge yet, and as this version is probably better anyway, I certainly would buy Snow Bros. Jr. if you ever get the chance. It's one of those that I wouldn't mind spending a little more on, because it's so addictive. The controls and gameplay fit the console perfectly. You can play it in short bursts, it uses the entirety of the small screen. The cutscenes tell the story of the war after every boss, and they look bloody gorgeous. This is one that you need, I would say. Do I like this better than Bubble Bobble? I think I actually do. So good.
Who's the new guy that I just got? We'll have to check him out. This guy? Oh, Dionysus. What? Marble Mayhem? Marble Madness. I actually like this one. We'll have to see what this guy... Well, maybe I should actually read about him. Yeah, like what? What does this guy do? I'm gonna compare stats with my current guy. Attack 95. Whatever, we'll just keep our fucking guy, I don't know. I don't know what is so special about him. Who knows?
From the darkest recesses of an architect's fever dream comes a port of one of the more unique arcade titles from the 80s. The aim is to skillfully control this marble to the end goal of increasingly tricky obstacle courses. The stages are laid out in a three-dimensional isometric style. There are plenty of opportunities to smash your marble to bits by dropping it from too high a height, or off one of the sides into oblivion. It'll always respawn where you lost it, but this takes a few seconds and the time limit is pretty strict. The quicker you beat a stage, the more time you'll have to carry over to the next one, so you need to make haste even on the easier levels. There are these things that look like slinkies but are a kind of leech that eats your ball, and patches of ooze that slither about that you need to avoid. The first thing to get used to is the gravity. Your ball gathers speed pretty quickly when going downhill, and correcting its motion takes a great deal of precision and skill. It's quite impressive how responsive the controls are. It's certainly not easy, but you never feel conned because of bad controls. The original arcade version used a trackball to control the marble, giving a full 360-degree directional movement. Obviously, the home ports, of which there are many, use a D-pad for the most part, but the feeling was usually replicated well. You can choose between 45-degree or 90-degree controls. The 45-degree one requires you to push down to move the marble diagonally down and to the left, leaving right to move you diagonally down and to the right. I can never get my head around this scheme for isometric games, because the levels are laid out diagonally, but you don't press the arrows diagonally to move it that way. Not a fan at all, but different strokes and all that. Choosing 90-degree that way. Levels are laid out diagonally, but you don't press the arrows diagonally to move it that way. Not a fan at all, but different strokes and all that. Choosing 90 degrees allows you to move left by pressing left, and so on. Sure, you'll be holding two directions a lot of the time, but you won't have to overcome that natural instinct of wanting to move in the direction you push. There are 5 levels in all, which loop until you eventually run out of time. They all go from the top corner down to the bottom, except the final stage, which runs the other way. Gravity's been reversed here as well, meaning the marble accelerates up the hills. The Game Boy version of Marble Madness is really rather good. I'm not massively au fait with how processor-hungry a game that looks like this is. Maybe it's not at all, but the system pulls off the isometric effect rather good. I'm not massively au fait with how processor-hungry a game that looks like this is. Maybe it's not at all, but the system pulls off the isometric effect really well, and a game that had the potential to be hard to visualize actually looks great. The light and shade is more emphasized, which compensates for the lack of color while retaining the depth. The classic atmospheric soundtrack is done well. I've always got a strange The Adventures of Mark Twain vibe from the sound and aesthetics in Marble Madness. No idea why, and it's no different here. A faithful representation of a game that's always hard to beat, but is certainly unique, and is 100% skill-based from start to finish. It seems like something that should be easy, but it's really not. Not for me, at least. I don't know about you, but I'm such a klutz in this game, and it often leaves me feeling like there's something wrong with my basic motor functions. On November the 12th, 1984, approximately 4 months before Mikhail Gorbachev took power in the Soviet Union, a Russian Typhoon-class submarine surfaced briefly in the Atlantic, just north of Bermuda. It subsequently sank in deep water after suffering massive radiation leakage. Unconfirmed reports indicate some of the crew were rescued. According to repeated statements from both Soviet and American governments, nothing of what you are about to see ever happened. Whoa. In this rendition of a classic Sean Connery movie, you control Red October, the submarine, through 8 cavernous stretches of ocean. You basically need to get to the end of these underwater cave systems without getting blown up, where you'll fight a boss. There are lots of other submarines, battle cruisers, helicopters, all sorts of nasties trying to stop you. They're totally ruthless too, and don't give you a second's respite. You fire torpedoes back at them with B, and also have a limited supply of stronger homing missiles that you fire with A. The controls are similar to Choplifter 2 in that pressing backwards, i.e. the opposite to the direction you're moving in, one time will allow you to reverse while still attacking in that direction. Pressing it a second time turns you around. The physics are suitably underwatery, with a decent drag feeling that means momentum will build over a short time rather than being instant. The bosses are a little strange. Some are little more than sequence fights where you have to destroy parts of a huge construct in order, removing layer after layer until the battle's done. Others are your standard monstrous creation that's both bigger and vastly stronger than you, but can still be taken down with your ordinary fire. The music is decent, but my word is it repetitive. You'll be hearing that small collection of tunes again and again. The explosions are done well, which is fortunate as there are a lot of them in this game. I don't mind the graphics. The radar is very helpful and looks great, and the hit detection is very good, which is an achievement in and of itself because of how irregular the rock formations are. It can't have been straightforward to program that. Sure, what you're looking at isn't amazingly varied, but it can definitely be put in the good drawer. There is a reason that I won't be playing The Hunt for Red October too much after this review, however. It's not the presentation, which, as I've already said, is decent. It's not the storyline, because while it doesn't follow the plot of the movie that much, other than the start sequence, the source material is a great film and lends itself excellently to an atmospheric experience. No, the biggest problem with this game is the difficulty. It's so unforgiving. I've got to level 3 a couple of times, but never further. It's just too hard. Now, I don't mind challenge, as I've said many times, but I feel like a little kid getting picked on by the bigger boys. The Soviet forces are relentless, brutal bastards who are everywhere. It doesn't matter if you can see them or not, because they'll just wipe you out. I only got as far as I did by playing the coward, hiding in crevices and sneaking out when there were no rockets heading my way. Progress is almost completely reliant on collecting power-ups. There are ones that heal you, ones that give you more missiles, a caterpillar drive thing that stops the enemies from spotting you for a short time, and occasional extra lives. The thing is, these can be destroyed by enemy torpedoes, or even your own, which is infuriating. Enemies take several hits.
I have enough to buy the thing, so I may as well, I guess. Right, let's actually see the difference. 27 versus 51. So what is this even? Who is this for? The Homer guy? I'm trying to remember where exactly this, I think it's just this way. Gotta make it to the shrine without dying. I think it's this way. Wasn't so bad, actually. Alright, beer. Gominasai. The fuck? Did something weird with my leg just now. Fucking hurt. Alright. I'm gonna go, God, I don't have freaking warp. That's fine though. Should survive on the way back. Never mind. This... The problem is not me surviving. This guy just freaking died. He's a freaking weakling.
To destroy, you have to be face to face with them, and they're
I had to get a
firing
warp,
back at you. It's nigh
thing,
impossible
wing.
to take out a sub with your ordinary weapon without taking damage yourself. The unforgiving level of difficulty makes this more stressful than enjoyable, and that's not what video games should be about. What video of difficult ordinary weapon without taking damage yourself? The unforgiving level of difficulty makes this more stressful than enjoyable, and that's not what video games should be about.
Oh my god, he gave it a half star. I actually hated this game as well.
Also known on some platforms as Nebulous, Castellion is a somewhat unique platform game where you play as a pig, frog, mouse thing called Julius. You have to climb to the summit of 8 colossal towers and plant D-bombs, it's not rude, to bring these alien constructions to the ground and save your island. As Julius climbs and leaps across the face of each tower, he is confronted by hordes of geometric enemies such as the spherical eyeballs and spheroids, and hexalons. And guess what shape they are? So rather than climbing the interior of the towers, you're working your way around the perilous edges, trying to avoid these enemies and dissolving platforms. What sets Castellion apart from an ordinary platformer is the level layouts. The sprite of your character doesn't move as such, but stays rooted to the center space of the screen, and the tower rotates behind you clockwise or counterclockwise, giving an impressive level of depth. It doesn't sound like something that would work on the Game Boy, but it's surprisingly effective. You can shoot something called carbono bombs, a weapon purported to be made from a substance harder than diamond. You have unlimited ammo for these, and they can be used to take out certain threats and remove flashing blocks from your way. Still, not all enemies are affected by it. Some you'll just have to hide from or otherwise avoid. Any contact will knock you down to a lower platform. If you end up in the sea, well, you die. It's hard to swim with no arms, I suppose. The dissolving platforms have no telegraphs. All of a sudden they'll just fall from under you. Your only choice is to memorize their location. The tower has several doors that lead you to other parts of the tower, and elevator platforms that you press up or down to activate while stood on. Get to the end of a level, a big ask, and you can enter a bonus stage, whereby you run from left to right as quickly as you can while also collecting jewels. This gives you extra lives, but the quicker you complete each stage, the more bonus time you can take into the following tower, so they're worth doing.
Kinda just need
It all
lucky
sounds like something that
encounters.
could work, and sure, the game was reasonably popular on home computers. The problem here is the obscene difficulty. You can't ever expect to beat a level without having first died 100 times, getting slightly further each life, and just learning the whole thing by rote. It comes across as a puzzle game, but there's little strategy to be had anywhere. You just move about as quickly as you can in trial and error fashion, trying to avoid the ridiculous onslaught of shapes flying at you. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention that this game has one of the stingiest time limits I've ever come across. If you fall but one time, there's basically no way you'll get to the top. When you run out of time, you die. When you die, you start over. No checkpoints anywhere. Sorry to say, Mr. Pig Frog thing, you're on your own with this one. I don't care about your silly little island enough to put myself through Castellion.
Man, I just get put to sleep. That did not happen. Last time I just got lucky. I just have to get lucky.
Oh gosh, Minnie, I have a present for you. You can guess what happens. Big Bad Pete has stolen it. So, enlisting the help of Goofy, you need to progress through the levels to get it back. Starting off in Mickey's hometown, you soon find yourself in a shopping mall, crossing a lake, through some woods, up a mountain. They weren't kidding with the name Dangerous Chase. The game strongly reminds me of the fantastic Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers on the NES, a game that I really wish made it to the Game Boy. You can control either Mickey or Minnie, and in the same way that the chipmunks could pick up crates and apples and hurl them at the enemies, you can do the same here. Pick up a block and lob it horizontally or vertically at an enemy, and they fly diagonally off the screen. There are lots of stars scattered across the levels, of which if you collect 100 you get an extra life. There are stars and health pickups in special blocks, 4 of which per level also harbour these treasure orbs. If you can find all 4 and then complete the level, you get an extra life. The screen scrolls from left to right, and you can only backtrack a very short distance. So if you overshoot a bonus orb, then I'm afraid you're not getting it. The third level sees your mouse in a speedboat on a lake, having to avoid rocks and flying fish in an auto-scroller to Goofy on the other side. That's the thing, Goofy's always waiting for you at the end of the level, which makes me wonder why he's making Mickey go through such an ordeal. When you finally get to fight Pete at the end, he's a joke. He just jumps back and forth, hide on the right-hand side of the screen, and he throws balls the other way. There's no AI, just a strict, unwavering pattern that he follows. There's a nice variation of enemies, from angry dogs to flying squirrels, from snakes to bears. The game looks lovely with a real Disney charm, detailed backgrounds and cartoonish sprites. The music has the same quality you expect from a Disney game. It's no DuckTales, but then not many soundtracks are. There's enough variation in the gameplay elements to ensure you're not just repeating yourself. A solid title that finally gave Mickey something interesting to do rather than just going around a castle collecting keys. Something of a relief, I'd say. If they're anything like this one, I'm looking forward to reaching Magic Wands and Ultimate Challenge. I don't want to accuse the great
Alright. Alright, we should actually no, I don't have enough. I don't have enough for another wing, so we're just gonna have to hope nothing bad happens. Well, let's actually see what this guy can do that is useful. This, perhaps? Oh, I should give him, yeah, I'll give him maybe his better weapon. I don't know if I can actually do that though. Like, yeah, I don't want to equip it. I want to give it to him. Maybe I can't. Either way, my spiked thing is oh no, I have this, so it's fine. No, we gotta use it. Maybe I'll try using that as well, though. It might just be like a better weapon. I have to see how much damage it does. So I do, I don't know how it works for me. Do I do this? I have to see how much damage. 10. That's just not worth it all. Yeah, I don't have any healing, so I'm pretty doomed here. Yeah, it's gonna be rough for a while. I mean, first of all, I need more money. But I guess I'll try again. You know what? I'm just gonna sell. Probably just sell my stupid thing that I bought that sucks. Believe it's this way. Here we go. Maybe I should have just done that one. That normal attack the whole time. Item one doesn't seem to matter. I don't know. I don't really... Oh, whatever, dude. Well, I got put to sleep. I don't know what the fuck to do about this still. Like, I actually have no idea. Like, what? Oh. Guess we just need to attack that guy first, but, damn. Yeah, I don't have, do not have, a wing. Just gonna have to die. Simple as that. No, these guys put me to sleep as well. Literally everything just puts me to sleep. Man. That's rough. What the fuck do I do about getting put to sleep? Well, that sucks. I guess I will, get one of my older guys, and, well, I don't think grinding will matter at all, but I'm not gonna be playing this much longer, so. Damn, I don't know. Just in a rough spot. I don't know, how I'm supposed to do that area, because I just get put to sleep. Maybe next time I will just try and run away the whole time. I'll have to make a note for myself, just run from enemies, and that's that whole tower. Oopsie, I didn't attack with God. About to hit 20,000 experience, which is crazy. I never thought I'd see the day. I was definitely not even close to that amount at the start. That's for sure. Probably some expensive stuff I'm picking up. Man. I don't even know what is actually what I'm actually expected to do to get through that tower. I'm gonna have to look up some gameplay videos that don't exist. This dude's dropping so much. Put to sleep once again. That's how I always die in this game. And then I can't wake up, and there's just, you can't prevent it, you can't stop it. Yeah, what's the deal with that? I don't know. But since I'm here, I'm gonna have to save and rage quit. Nickels will be grabbed. GG. It's not GG quite yet. Might be another 20 hours for this one. But I will have to see what the pros do. They don't exist. That's the thing, though.